Been good. Been really good. Kids doing well. Getting them all back in summer school now. Getting back in workouts will start here 1st of June, and got a good attitude. And I think it's good to get a little bit of time away. I mean, it's a grind on these kids. You don't get the time away that they used to be able to get in the summers and things like that. So I think it was good for them to get back, get rest, and to kind of get rejuvenated and get ready to go for the summer.
There's a lot of talk, it's still early, top 25 polls and whatnot, but there's a good amount of chatter that you guys could end up a couple miles away for the national championship game. How good do you think this team can be?
We have a chance to be a good team. We've got a lot of question marks, and with consistency and being what we want to be, and I like every team does now. And I always say that with every team I've ever had. But we have a chance to have a good team, and if we'll gel together, and like I say, it's a very unique group as far as 17 starters back, but still only 12 seniors, with only 5 or 6 of those guys really starting. So when you get down to that, it's an experienced young team. So that brings in its own challenges, but very excited about it, and hopefully we'll develop. I mean, we'll wait and see how they play.
Coach, you've had tremendous success. Who are some of your mentors when you look back through the years, some of the people that you just couldn't have done it without?
I mean, if you're going into just coaching, I mean, my parents were the key to everything I've ever done.
Sure.
And my thought process about how to approach things, how to do things, all come back to my parents. I mean, and I say that, and he said, well, you want mentors as coaches. I still refer to them more than I do anybody I ever coached under, by far, probably 10 to 1. But then coaching, I mean, I was around the Bowden family at a young age, which formed a lot of thoughts, I think, overall views of things I believed, from Coach Bowden in early years, what I'm saying, just sitting around as a young coach when I first got in, and just how he handled things, how he treated people, how he treated his players, and how he was always there for his players. I mean, in every way, shape, and form. And I think that's very critical today, and I even maybe more so today than ever. Then, other experiences I had doing, that coach was Terry, who had a great run at Auburn, did a great job there. Coach Saban, so long at LSU, and he and I were together, and we still stay friends and talk, and the modern era of how to do things as far as organization, the whole program. And then we tweak and turn, and back with Coach Bowden at the end of his career. It's funny to see him at the beginning and in the end, and the different, some changes, some not, and how consistent he was. But those have been the main guys. But then I think at the end of the day, I think what I have learned from those guys is that, and I've seen from being around different people, they've all done it different ways. And I think the key is doing it your way. Twist things, turn things, take what you believe, what you don't want to deal with, and put your own stamp on them. I mean, they may have influences from all of them, but at the end of the day, you still got to make the calls. You still got to run the program. You still got to do those things. And I think if you're just totally copying people, you never get there, because I don't think people follow people who aren't authentic, who truly don't believe in themselves and what they're doing. And I think being able to take, learning curves from all them, but then putting my own stamp on it. I think I learned that maybe first and foremost from all them more so than anything.
Do you have a favorite coach's saying that you say to the players?
No, your action speaks so loud I can't hear what you're saying. I mean, there's one, you reap what you sow. There's a lot of them, but those are different things that you don't always get what you want. You get what you deserve. You know what I'm saying? I mean, things like that. And I think but I say those aren't things that just, to me, apply to football. Most of the sayings that I do say that I repeat over and over are life sayings. Sure. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's one thing all those guys have taught me, that everything we teach in here is going to be applicable in life.
So being under Bowden for quite some time at Florida State, how hard was it for you to put your stamp on the program? What was that transition?
It wasn't because I've always, I'm more of a strong personality person. I'm going to do things the way I want to do them. I mean, I know that. People have told me that. Sometimes I used to not realize that, but that's just the way I do things. And it really wasn't, because my whole thing is what is right. At the end of the day, are you right or you wrong? And if you're doing what you truly believe is right, and you have the right things in mind, the right goals, you do them that way. And I think now, getting people around there to make sure that they did them, I think that was toughened a little bit, because they'd done things one way for so long. That's the way we've always done them. But change is inevitable. You can either be a part of it or you can't. And I'm changing from what I was a first-year coach. I mean, there's things that you always adjust. I think your core values and your traditions don't change, but how you do business daily changes. I mean, think in your world. I mean, you used to go out and get a story, took your time, wrote it up. Now you're having to beat everybody to it, run get enough truth in it to make sure it gets out first, then you clean it up as it goes. I mean, that's about how reporting goes to get it online. And I understand that's the world you live in. I mean, that's just the world we live in. I mean, we're in a immediate, we're laughing about that now. How many times do people actually pick up a newspaper and read it? You know what I'm saying? I mean, because everybody does what? Picks this thing up? Except me, because I can't do it. I ain't no joke. I've never read it online. But, I mean, everybody wants to read it on their phone or on their iPad or something like that. So you adjust. You don't always agree with it. I like the old days when you could sit down and do that stuff and really build a relationship with guys, you know what I mean, and do that. But, you know, you have to do things the way the world dictates now.
So how have you evolved from year one to now?
Just tweak things. I mean, just live and learn. And maybe nothing you see, but how I just approach players, whether you get so excited about something or what to pick your fights, pick your battles, about what to pick your battles about, you know what I mean? But still never give up what's right and wrong and the core principles of it. Because at the end of the day, it's what's best for the kids. Because none of us, me, the AD, the president, the chancellors, the provost, the professors, none of us would have a job if it wasn't for the kids. So do what's right by the kids. And I think that's the battles you always got to fight.
Have you ever had a loss that, although it was tough to swallow, was maybe one of the best things that ever happened to you? Because when you went home and you thought about it, you made those changes and you're just a much better coach maybe because of...
Yeah. All losses. You learn from all losses. All of them. I don't know if you're ever better for them, but you learn from them. I don't say... I say you learn from wins. And I've learned from wins and gotten by with things that say, you know something? I'll never do that again. Or I got to remember not to put myself to that extent because we got, that was good there, but that's not going to consistently do it. I mean, you learn from wins and losses. I think you learn from every experience you have, not just losses. You know what I'm saying? Everybody says you learn from losses. I think you learn from wins, and because our tendency in our world today is to dwell on the negative, and we harp on the negative. And I think that's why it's harder on athletes anymore because we don't ever write about the positives. We're a negative world. We harp on the negative. We drive the negative. We want kids to be perfect. We want the world to be perfect. And we criticize everything else because when we write about good stories, we get bored. Nobody reads them. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's the truth. We're in a National Enquirer world. That's the kind of the world we're in right now, I say, and from a joking standpoint, but it kind of is. So, I mean, I think you learn from everything, and good, bad, and different.
How's Sean coming along?
Good. He's back to 50% on the treadmill, running real hard, starting to do drops already, and hopefully by middle of June, he'll be going full speed.
A lot of people down here were kind of scratching their head when the Bucks traded up to draft Aguayo. What would you say to those?
Why? I think having a kicker and having a security of that as a coach and a guy that's consistent. I mean, think about this. New England had the best kicker in ball, and he did miss a PAT, which had him to go for 2 at the end of the game instead of tying it up. I mean, that's the best in ball, but he only misses 1. But when you don't have a kicker, tell me what a guard or a tackle is going to do more than a kicker does in critical situations. I mean, they're all just as critical. And when you don't have a piece of the puzzle, when a puzzle's put together, if one piece is missing, it's still empty. You know what I'm saying? So when you can get the best kicker you've seen and one of the best in the history of the NCAA, why would you not? And to me, it was brilliant how they did it because they got who they wanted with the 9th pick, who they were going to take anyway. With Hargrave, they moved the 11th, got the 4th round pick, still got their 2nd round guy, and then traded it away, and they wouldn't have had it unless they did that. So really, they didn't lose anything. To me, it was genius. It was pretty smart by what their GM and them did. I mean, and got a piece of the puzzle in which they needed. Because when you can count on how you call a game, and in NFL, you're in limited possessions. Just like, certain games like us, when we played the Georgia Tech game, we had the ball 8 times. When you're in limited possession games, where teams have ball control, and that's the way the NFL's run, if you don't get a touchdown or a critical field goal, most of your, you got, and if people say, well, punter, and if that punter can't pin them back, the kicking game, you only get it a limited number of times. So if you get the ability to get a touchdown, if not hit a long field goal or hit a critical field goal, to me it even enhances that. And then now that PATs are 33 yards, or is that what they are, 33? Or 30 something, whatever it is. The guy's never missed under 40. So far, to me it's smart business. To me, I value. We signed 2 kickers, the number 1 and number 3 guy in the country. One's a punter and a kicker. And How many times to Florida State? I mean, early national championships? Wide right, wide left, wide right.
I'm a Bills fan, that hurt.
Yeah, I mean, if he makes that field goal, maybe the Bills win 4 Super Bowls instead of lose. I mean, it's still great teams.
No, it's true though.
But I mean, in the NFL, every game is so close. It comes down to kicks most of the time.
Yeah.
And being able to have a guy like that, I'll say this: most people said that are people they ain't ever coached, and maybe that's including scouts. If they said it, they ain't never been on that sideline. It is great. I mean, they need, but Darby and Goldman, those guys are all doing good in Chicago and Buffalo, and we got so many guys everywhere. But it is neat. I mean, you can keep up with them a little more. You hear about them a little more. Fans can come see them. I think it's good for both organizations, not just because they're local kids, but they're local guys and they're good players, and they're used to winning and they know how to win. They know how to work to win, and I think that makes it very good. It makes it neat for me because I do get to hear about them a lot.
What's the next step that Dalvin can take?
Who, Dalvin?
Dalvin.
I think there's always polishing your game. I mean, whether it's even become a little better pass blocker, and he catches the ball at the backfield, but really define your routes and really be a weapon there if people start taking the run away. Find different ways you can get the ball, flex out of the backfield, maybe run routes like a receiver, which he can do. Even pressure your blocks, understanding the schemes, not only your schemes, but now understanding defenses even more to know where your cuts are going to be or how that run should develop out, you know what I mean, and pressing your blocks another step or open field run. I mean, there's a lot of little things in that regard. And, you never quit getting better, you know what I'm saying? And I think he'll do that because he's a workaholic.
Do you think there's going to be a time where a guy like Dalvin, who's played obviously 2 very strong college years, is going to look and say, you know what, I don't need my 3rd year of college, even though I can't go pro yet, just take it off and get
No,
ready?
I don't. Football's not a game you can do that in. I think football is a game. I don't think any of those games are. I think if you do, you'll regress, and I think you'll shorten your career the other way. I don't, and I think it's bad. And if we start going down that road, it's bad. So you know what coach will do? Quit playing you. Don't play as a freshman. If we go down that road, which would be a travesty, but we wouldn't do that. But I mean, if you start thinking that way, you'll never progress and be what you can be.
Coach, you walk into the stadium already and it looks totally different. What is that atmosphere going to change? Like, how is it going to change for next year?
I don't think it will. I think it's going to be the same dynamic atmosphere that chop will get going. We play them well and get it rolling.
I'm just talking like with the upgrades to it. I mean, do you think it adds anything? Is what I can say.
I think it does. I mean, for the fans,
Right.
And I don't mean this as a player. We don't see anything. What we look at's right between them white lines. Those 2 goalposts and that field hadn't moved. It's going to be the same. It's going to be the same thing. But it is great that the fans get that experience and what they're going to have, and it's going to be great for them. And I think that's critical today. I think enhancing the fan experience is very important with how TV is today. I think it's great for them to continue to go to the games and to the stadiums and to the ballparks because of how well TV coverage is ran today. I think it's very important for places to enhance that atmosphere. And there's nothing like being at a game. I don't care. I mean, you can sit back and watch, but and to be able to bring your kids and experience that whole thing, I think it's great for fans. I mean, I think the true fans are always going to come, but I think with the world of TV today, I think it's very important that stadiums and people keep continuing to do those kind of things to enhance the experience for the other fans.
Have you guys figured out or finalized your satellite cam plan yet?
No, not yet.
Still working on it.
How much preparation goes into we know there's endless amounts, but before a game, the night before, do you get any sleep? Or?
Oh, we do. There's a routine. There's a thing, but people don't. I mean, you're 14, 16, 18-hour days. I mean, all during the season. That's just part of it. And then there's a certain routine that we go through, and I think there's a true mental process 48 hours before a game that's very critical.
Is this all year round? Do you get any break at all?
No, you get some. You don't get what you used to because recruiting has changed it. You don't get the down times anymore. You don't get, and then people joke about, well, satellite camps take away from families, and I hear them, it does. Because there is, it used to be after recruiting that month before spring ball, you worked on ball, but it wasn't, now it's, you're in junior days, there's people continually coming to your university on unofficial visits, then you're right into spring ball and you're doing the same things with kids coming in and recruiting. Then afterwards, you're back on the road again for 5 to 6 weeks, whether you're speaking, blah, blah, blah. There's, a 3 or 4 week window at the end of June, 1st of July, but then you're in and out because you're trying to make sure your kids are doing the right things. They're in summer school, they're still because they get so much free time in the summers. kids, that's where you're trying to stay on top of them there too. So the time for coaches and families and things is less than it's ever been by far. I mean, by far.
You're saying how critical it was for players to step aside from the game. For
It is.
yourself,
It
for
is.
yourself.
It is. And it's hard to find that time because of the scrutiny that's put on athletes today. I was saying that today. I mean, an athlete, it's funny, we'll take a Hollywood star, a politician, people who run our countries that do everything, that make mistakes, make critical mistakes, do dumb things, have major things, and we'll go back and watch a movie. They keep making movies. They keep getting reelected. An athlete, as soon as he does one thing, and even if whether it's good or bad, sometimes even if it's put out there, taken away, if something, whereas an 18 to 20-year-old kid, we want to throw them away. We want to tarnish them. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it is a very tough world. So I mean, trying to find time away and not be with your kids and trying to make sure they're doing the right things all the time. And people say, well, why are kids so bad at it? They're not. You just know about it now. I actually think they're better. There's nothing wrong with them. I think parents are worse than they've ever been because I think we've got more single-parent homes and all those types of things. But I also think that there's more knowledge of everything. Every move they make is scrutinized in such detail now that it's crazy. I mean, the pressure put upon these kids. I mean, think about what you saw Lowry do the other day. What did you see Lowry do in the basketball game the other day? A grown man have to leave the game because of why? The pressure of playing. Then he had to walk away, go back to the locker room, compose himself, come back, and they played great last week. But I don't think the scrutiny we put these kids under at 18 to 22 right now, they come in with all the hype from the recruiting services and the papers, and more so than ever. And all of a sudden they're 19 and they ain't playing, they're a sophomore, they're not an All-American, they're not going to be a first-round draft pick. Well, we're criticized, we're on the message boards. And I mean, those kids know everything that's being said. So I mean, that scrutiny and that time to get away, you got to be there for the kids. And I think your support system's in place, the coaches being there for those kids 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all that is very critical in their development because they have to have that comfort zone and security blanket of knowledge to be able to help them as much as we can. I know I got on a soap opera, but that's a fact. Now we're in a different world today, and football more so than any sport.
And speaking of that, without names, there was a lineman who got in a little bit of trouble this week. How do you deal with that as a head coach if you get a call like that and some things happen? What goes
First and foremost, you got to wait and see what the facts are.
Right.
Don't jump to conclusions. Find out what actually happened because people today want you to rush to judgment, but how do you rush to judgment before you know facts?
Sure.
Look at the circumstances and things, and then you got to deal with them accordingly of how they affect. Now, first of all, the university, what the standards of that is, and how it affects that, how it affects their personal name, and what it does to your football team or athletic event or whatever it is. You got to act. Is it something that you can? However you punish, every punishment is different. And people say, well, why do we have a court? Court systems do that. They even punish the same crime differently. And by who did it, how they did it, the circumstances that happened, I think that's where we got to remember that those things happen in the world today. And I think the first and foremost thing is gather all the facts before you jump to conclusion and crucify somebody on things that aren't true. They're all allegations. And then if they're true, then act accordingly on the facts.
This is a little out of left field, Jimbo, but the Ivy League this year voted to go no full contact practices. Could something like that work in D1?
I mean, what you got to define is what full contact is. And look at the NFL. Are NFL injuries up or down? They're up.
Yeah.
Why? Body's not conditioned to take the punishment. You got to be careful. You can cut it back and save them in practices, but when it does come, their injuries are up more than ever because they haven't trained to do it. It's like asking a pitcher not to throw bullpens and throw all week and go throw on the weekend and still be the same. I mean, there's got to be, you can't beat them to death and do all those things. There's a fine line. But then you got to define, there's got to be some contact. There'll be modifications, but I don't think that's totally the answer.
Some of those early kickoff times came out this week, and you had that home opener at 11:30. Is that going to be a challenge after playing that?
I think it's a very big challenge. I don't like that. I mean, because you're coming off a Monday night game to a 12:30 game. I think it's ridiculous in college to ask kids to play on a Monday, Saturday, or a Saturday, Thursday. If they're really, truly worried about the kid. I think those games are ridiculous. That's just my opinion on it. I think it's unfair to them. It's not what's good for the body and everything else. But then I think having to come back after that and then turn around and go into we got 3 games in 12 days. And you got a very quick, so it will change how we practice and prepare. It will change how we prepare going into the first game. How much we get work on the second game and how much, we'll have to change. I'll have to look at that whole procedure and then how an early game do an early game the next week. That all will be factored in. That's something I take very seriously, and I think the adjustments of the body and having the body right is very critical in that.
How much do you take away from this year? You guys had some very early start times.
Yeah, but we'll define those by what we had before. A lot of it has to do with what you have before and how much practice you can get during the week and what your recovery times are, and goes into that, which goes up to 48 hours after that, which is very critical after a game.
Read somewhere this week that you guys over the last 3 seasons are the only team in major college football undefeated at home. How big is that to hold serve at home?
That's great. I mean, you got to have 13, 14, 15 we are. Yeah, I mean, it's very critical. 'Cause, I mean, first of all, you got to establish your home turf. And knowing that coming in there is very tough. And, and people say, well, that's your home field. But, and I think the thing you got to remind is just because you play at home, though, doesn't mean you win. The players got to make a difference at home. You know what I'm saying? And I think you should. I mean, I think anytime you walk in something that's sacred like Doak Campbell and the history and tradition that's been there, you got to play your tail off for it. We've been able to do that. But having a home field advantage is critical. And I think our fans are a huge part of that. A huge part of that. I think it definitely did. It let me identify issues quicker. And from a standpoint, people think that those don't work. I think they do. I mean, it can be some tough things, they know, but I think it does. Just know where to go quicker. You know what I'm saying? You're eventually going to do the same things, but it just sometimes being there a year early I was right. That is something that I definitely thought. You know what I'm saying? And also be able to communicate with the people who you're going to have to make the changes with. Just start that relationship earlier.
Sorry, a self-serving Tampa question, but again, title game is coming here.
Mm-hmm.
What's important to you as a coach in a championship site in the city?
They got that stadium in a good hotel. the rest of it, I'm not worried about. I think it's important that you're in a warm environment or a closed environment where outside factors for a championship game as far as weather and things aren't as big a deal. I'm a believer in that. I think, in a championship game, they should be played like that. But at the same time, I joke about that, but that's true. Make sure we got the accommodations and the meeting space at the hotels, and that, we're in a place that we'll definitely be in a place we want to play. But I mean, distractions can be critical, and how you got to limit them and what your control is, but, what goes on. But they're always going to be at great venues, you know that. Tampa's a good one.
You're on a tail end of your tour this year. Mm-hmm. How was it, and what has the Boosters meant to you?
Boosters are critical. I mean, you can't do the things we're going to do, and there's a lot of things we have to add to where we're going. The academic support, academic center, more things for these players in so many different ways, and not just, I say players, but student athletes, to develop them as people. So many other programs in place that we have to keep enhancing and growing at, and you can't ever stop at. And I think that development for them and your coaches and everything else. And I'm not talking about just facilities. I'm talking about a lot of things behind the scenes that develop these kids. I think that's the difference in the good teams and the great teams today. A lot of teams have good players. A lot of teams have great facilities. But you're willing to invest into those kids behind the scenes with your programs, your personal development, your academic development, all those things of building the person, then the student, then the player. I think those are the critical things, and without those, the boosters, we couldn't survive without the boosters. And it's critical. And we've still got a lot of things we got to get in place.
What's your favorite thing about being a head coach?
That's a great question.
Is it the kids? Is it?
Well, I think it's the kid. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, I'll tell you what. Define what you mean by being as a head coach. I mean,
when you look back in the rocking chair, when it's all said and done, and you're thinking back at this point in your life, what do you think you'll remember as maybe the best part about being the head coach of the Florida State?
To be able to help get these kids developed as people, as students, and see different parts of life that they never thought they could be successful in, and getting them to buy into it and be able to understand it. And more importantly, once they have, it's like anything. Once they do it and have confidence in it, all of a sudden they can do it. Because we say, well, why didn't that guy do it? Well, think about this. When nobody in your family's ever done it, nobody in your neighborhood's ever done it, nobody in your block's ever done it. I mean, and you say, kids say, well, I'm going to do it. But how do they know? It's an experience in a world they're going into that they have to totally trust strangers. You say that's easy to do. That's not easy to do. Especially when you come from atmospheres and environments like a lot of them do, where if they trust the wrong person, they might not be alive. You know what I'm saying? And getting those guys to see that you really care and get him to understand that you have their best interests at heart and you're never going to tell them anything that's wrong for them. You maybe get on them. I ain't saying you ain't going to be hard, you ain't going to be tough, you ain't going to be demanding. I'm as hard and as tough as demanding as any of them and can be extremely tough. But at the same time, it's never done with anybody's, not their best interest at heart. And I think helping them understand that and then realize that they can be more and then start to have success in those worlds and watch their light go on and how they transition as people and grow. I mean, I think that's by far the funnest and most rewarding thing.
You've had that with plenty of players. You've had so much success on the field. So what keeps fueling you?
That there's always someone out there that you can help. I mean, and if I get tired of doing that, then I get tired of coaching. To me, that is coaching. And it's like coming out to these, meeting the people, and then getting those people to come in and trying to help them become better. And honestly, a lot of times, they help me become a better person. And our coaches become better because we learn from them every bit as much as they learn from us. Because I'm going to tell you what, some of the things that they've done and been through, there's a lot of people out there in this world that criticize them and deal with them. They wouldn't be half the person they were if they went through what some of those kids went through.
Looking back now, how much has that role kind of changed from being an assistant to a head coach now?
I don't know if it's changed in that, but you can dictate more. And I tell you, some of the things I have to fight for, which bothers me as a head coach, that you got to fight for that time. You can set the policies in place, you can set the things in place, but the one thing sometimes an assistant, because you didn't have as many other things to deal with, you could spend more actual time. And that's why I'll never give up the coaching part of it, the interaction, walking through that locker room, making sure I'm coaching guys. I mean, being on the field, not being now, you're never a figurehead as a head coach because you always set the policies in place. But I mean, an active, hands-on guy, I can't ever see myself not doing that because I think as a coach, that's the one thing as a head coach, I fight to make sure I've got enough time to be with those guys actually, physically. You know what I'm saying?
Being an offensive guy, you were a standout quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do you spend more time with the offense than you do the defense? Or
I think you do on the field when you're out there on the thing, but I interact with those defensive guys a lot. I told you, I'm the only offensive guy in the world that recruits more defensive players than he does offensive players because I'm a believer in that. And I think I say that defensively is the key to me. And I say this wholeheartedly. I think it's easier to be good on defense. And I don't say that negatively, I think, because of timing, rhythm. Sometimes the ball just doesn't go in the rim. Sometimes the ball just doesn't go in the cup when you're putting it, whether you're shooting it, throwing it. Sometimes there's a rhythm and a timing. That on defense, sometimes effort, toughness, and things. Not saying it's easy to be good on defense, but you don't ever have to deal with that part of it. You know what I'm saying? It's like some days it's easier to field a ground ball. Some day that pitcher throws it, you just don't see it. You know what I'm saying, offensively. But you can always, the effort and toughness and things like that on defense can make up for that. And I'm a believer defense first and then offense and how it interacts. But I do probably more with the offense because I do call the plays and everything, but I spend a lot of time with our defensive players, a lot.
You and a couple other coaches at the spring meetings got to talk about not necessarily having to defend the ACC anymore, how it kind of stands on its own morals. And you look at that schedule this year, you have the reigning Coastal champion, you have the reigning Atlantic champion. How tough, I guess kind of the double-sided coin of, it must be nice to have the ACC be probably the best it's ever been, but at the same time makes that schedule that much tougher.
Oh, it does. I mean, we play Miami and North Carolina on the other side. Open up with Ole Miss. Got Florida. I mean, everybody talks about non-conference schedule. We keep forgetting we do what the SEC and everybody else does. As soon as we play Florida, because we don't. I mean, everybody says, well, why would you play? We play Florida. That's what they do and play what? 3 other schools, lower level schools, right? All the time. I mean, almost all those leagues do it. I mean, ours is built in. We're taking the extra step to play at Ole Miss. Next year we play Alabama, Clemson, Louisville, our side NC State. I mean, Boston College, traveling to Syracuse. I mean, it's all tough. I mean, 2 years ago we had the most players drafted of any division in college football, not just the ACC, but our side. The year we had 11, everybody's bragging about that. And how'd you play Louisville so tough? Well, they had 10. They had 10 guys drafted. I mean, so it's a great conference. I mean, it really is. And I think it's very, very, very underrated.
One more schedule thing. Is it nice for you? Obviously, you have the long trip to Syracuse and you have a trip to Louisville. Outside of that, the rest of them are in the state. Is it nice to kind
Now there's 3 of them out of state. NC State.
You're right, yeah.
There's 9 in, 3 out. Yeah, that does make it better. But also you got to play Florida and Miami and South Florida. Because, I mean, coming down here, South Florida's a heck of a football team. We were tied up at halftime. They won 7 of their last 8, won the bowl game. I mean, went to a bowl. Willie's done a great job, and it'll be a Super Bowl for them. They'll be ready to play. We're coming, off our 3rd game in 12 days, and then coming back here. I mean, it'll be tough.